Welcome everybody to the Enterprise Search and Discovery Conference. We are live here in Washington, D.C. Oh, no, we're not. We're on Feed Loop. I'm Mary D. Ojala. I am the Conference Program Director for Enterprise Search and Discovery, and looking forward to several wonderful days of talks and discussions and sharing of all kinds of wonderful knowledge. So to kick off Enterprise Search and Discovery, in our first session today, we are going to learn about combining a learning and knowledge platform with intelligent AI-powered search. And our speakers are Phil Lewis, who is the CTO of Pureinsights, and Steve Dineen, who is the founder and president of Fuse. So let me turn this now over to Phil. Phil, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much, Mary D. I'm just going to share my screen, guys, and hopefully we can see the content. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Pureinsights and Fuse KMWorld Connect session on combining a learning and knowledge platform with intelligence AI-powered search. Very grand and very long title, but hopefully we were able to boil this down into what it really means for you and your users of search going forward. I am the co-founder and CTO of Pureinsights. I've kind of been working in the search industry for over 30 years now, and working with a team of very talented people at Pureinsights who've also been working in the search space for over 20, 25 years in most cases. I'll be hosting your session today, but we are very lucky to be joined by Steve Dineen, the president and chairman of Fuse Universal, who will be bringing you the majority of the content in this session. And I'm sure you'll find it fascinating insight into how we combine explicit knowledge with tacit knowledge and make it discoverable for all users within the point of flow, the point of workflow, when users really need it. Before we hand over to Steve, though, I just got a few slides to introduce Pureinsights and what we do and how we have worked with Fuse over the last 2 years or so to build this technology and this capability into their platform. So Pureinsights have been around since around about 2020, so a relatively young company in the sense of what we do, but we have been working in the search space for over 30 years in my case, and 25 years in the rest of the leadership team within Pureinsights, and most of the people that are working for us have over 10 years plus in search domains. More recently, of course, we've been working with not only with search engines, but also with additional technologies that we're now starting to see when we combine these technologies into these applications, we get very strong capabilities from that. So this would include things like knowledge graphs, it would include natural language processing capabilities and other machine learning capabilities. We, of course, build solutions for our clients. But we also provide consulting services for our clients as well. If they're in the process of building a solution themselves, then we provide consulting services in and around that. Additionally, we can also provide a fully managed services, kind of a search ops kind of capability for our clients as well. We remain fiercely technology independent. So kind of everything that you see, everything you learn today can be deployed against a wide variety of different types of search engines, as well as a wide variety of different types of knowledge graphs and other cognitive services capabilities. So we're not kind of entrenched in one particular technology. We'll happily work with any of those technologies out there. And we've got a gaggle of friends and colleagues working around the world on these kinds of projects. I've personally worked on over 1,000 search projects in my tenure within the search industry, ranging from intelligence agencies on one side and making search as best it can possibly be within those organizations, all the way through to department stores and grocery stores on the other side, and basically everything else in between. So lots and lots of experience in providing these search capabilities to our clients. One key repeating pattern we've certainly seen over the last 10 years or so, maybe even 12 years or so, is that whenever we engage with our clients for search and discovery services, the key message is always pretty much the same thing. Just make it work like Google. Everybody respects Google. Everybody likes Google. Everybody just gets on with the way that Google does its stuff. But when you look at internal search applications that you may be using on a day-by-day basis, they're not quite as good, as powerful, and as comprehensive as search engines like Google. But when they say that, of course, what they really mean is make it work like Google, but you've also got to integrate it with my business knowledge systems. Okay, so all of my business knowledge systems, or certainly all of the major business knowledge systems that I would want to have access to. And they of course, they're not on the internet. They're kind of locked up within your corporate firewalls. And that's why it produces a specific challenge on how to crack open those data sets, get the knowledge from those data elements, and then service those in the right way for clients. Additionally to that, please know my business terminology, right? When I say a specific term or a specific phrase, it doesn't mean what the rest of the world is saying about that term or phrase. So therefore, please learn that, and please understand when I ask this particular question that I have a very specific meaning for some of these phrases within my organization. And of course, because we're behind the firewall, security plays a huge part in serving results. So when you answer that question, when you provide me that document, when you provide me that piece of content, just make sure that I'm allowed to see it and my users are allowed to see these elements. So everything that you do, including fully answering questions, user one may be able to know the answer to that question, user two may not be able to know the answer to that question. So if you look at what Google has brought to the mix, certainly in the last 10 years or so, they've combined a whole series of technologies, most notably in and around deep understanding of content, but also how they serve that content to an end user. And whilst this kind of result set over here looks like a search engine result set, it's actually being combined from a wide variety of different types of technologies. So if you look at the query, what is Tesla's revenue? There's query understanding that's taking place over that query using some specific NLP technologies. We can see here we've got an answer from a knowledge graph. So this answer has not come from the search engine. This has come from a knowledge graph, which is working hand in hand with the search engine. In actual fact, it might not be a knowledge graph answer specifically. It might be what we now call an extractive answer or a featured snippet. Google provides featured snippets where the authoritative answer does not necessarily come from a knowledge graph, but from trusted content. We can also see we have FAQs down here. So whilst you've asked this question, there may be a better way to ask that question, or there may be another interesting way to ask that question. And this is using vector-based search to vectorize your query and then find other queries which are similar semantically to the query that you've executed. And then finally, down here, we have our result set. And of course, the result set is not anymore a simple keyword lookup. It's very semantically aware. The search system understands the query itself, understands how to find the best document, trusts those best document, and then finds that answer for the individual user. So there's lots of capability that we're constantly being trained on every day, how to query Google, how to get the best possible answers out of it. And sadly, the majority of the search engines that we work with on a day-to-day basis, at least today, are somewhat lacking in that kind of really focused way of providing answers to end users. And the real reason for that is because of this need to kind of augment current search engines with AI-based technologies, which Google have done certainly over the last 10 years. And it's only really starting to happen now in the search industry with a number of key vendors that are out there. So what did we do with Fuse over the last couple of years or so? Well, we integrated a brand new search system with embedded AI capabilities into their learning and knowledge platform. It was essentially a direct search engine replacement for Apache Solr. And it is built on Elasticsearch plus a whole bunch of AI additions to search, including NLP, natural language processing, including Google BERT, which is really interesting because this really does give us almost a like-for-like capability inside the firewall, as Google is currently doing over the internet. We also provide vector-based search, so not just keyword search or term search, but real vectorized search capability with security filtering. And this brings a degree of semantic awareness to the results and the information that we're finding. And a future enhancement to this system will most likely be some additional machine learning. So we start to learn the terms and phrases that are being used not only within Fuse, but within their client base as well, by understanding how those terms are used in day-to-day language, and additionally, knowledge graph-based answers over and above the capabilities that we've already added. Okay, so with that, it's a very quick introduction to Pureinsights and what we do. I'd like to hand over now to Steve at Fuse, who will share some fascinating insights into the world of learning and discovery. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks also for explaining what you've done for us. I didn't quite understand all of that, but it sounds really clever what we're doing.
It is, trust me.
I understand most of 99% or 95% of that. But there wasn't, even every time I talk to you, I listen to you, it's like, oh wow, okay, there's a little bit more in there. So yeah, it was an amazing journey, and I think we're really keen to explain our world and how, in essence, I think the marriage between Pureinsight and Fuse is really bringing these two worlds together of knowledge management and learning, I think, in order to change the world. And I think if we look at the problem in the world, right? So in the learning world, we've got some massive problems, right? It used to be the majority of our industry, despite having digital learning technology, is still pretty much was delivering face-to-face training. Obviously, Corona changed that. There was no face-to-face training for a long time. And obviously, the hybrid worker has now come as an outcome of that, which is now people are being employed across the world, which makes it equally hard to put them into the classroom again. And people obviously recognize they don't want to be changing, a 5-day training course face-to-face to 40 hours of Zoom online type parts. So there's a challenge there for our learning world. The second challenge for our learning world is the speed of the knowledge is changing so fast. So, a couple of our clients, Volvo, cars used to be their products change every 5 years, and therefore the amount of knowledge needed to sell and service that wasn't radically new. Now those products change every 2 weeks. They're updated across the wire, like Tesla cars are, and they need to educate and inform and make available the knowledge, across that global workforce on an everyday basis. Even clients of ours like Demont, who make hearing aids, those hearing aids are now connected hearing aids, connected by Bluetooth to the mobile phones, and the app on the mobile phones changes as often as every mobile app we have, which therefore, again, introduces a whole new type of learning problem. And if you look at the main vehicle, traditionally, most organizations are still using for developing their staff, learning, it's the course. It's the ability to go and train a bunch of people, which really, when they're training people, is really saying, let's go and stuff their brain with as much knowledge we hope they can retain. But actually the reality of that, and this is typical, right? A 5-day course full of 1,000 slides, 80% is presenting content and not much time for anything else. And what happens is people get trained, they have some ability, they get slightly better in their performance, but it normally degrades off, whilst actually most of their learning happens over a very long period of time as they access learning on the job from people around them, trial and practice, etc., etc. And I guess where our clients are, and actually let me make sure I'm sharing with all the right buttons clicked. So we need to I'm doing good. So let me go back to that. So just explain where some of our clients already are by combining these worlds.
Since we implemented Fuse, we've seen huge business benefits. We've actually been able to retain our staff at 26% of a higher rate than previously in 2018. We've also seen our agent NPS scores improve. So we're up 33 NPS percent points. So we did come into this project with the mantra that we wanted to improve things for our staff so that improve things for our customer. And we've actually managed to do that. So much so that we've returned on our investment within 3 months because we haven't had to incur reoccurring recruitment and training costs.
One example of how Fuse has reduced the payback time on employee investment is in our sales onboarding program. As an example, in one region, the sales team members averaged 15 plus months to achieve this performance. By redesigning the onboarding program and building on the social learning features of Fuse, that population is now achieving payback in approximately 3 months.
Overall, the results have been incredible. In terms of engagement, 90% of advisors and 100% of managers actively use Fuse. We have seen and measured an increase in our Net Promoter Score. But the standout statistic is that we have proved that next generation learning technology has had a direct impact on an increase in the lifetime value of a Vodafone.
And I'm not going to go through all of it, right? But it's enough to land the message that certain organizations have transformed what they're doing. And it hits on this point, right, which is the same as the previous slide, which is when we did the research with UCL, when I looked at data on one of our clients and then did it on a number of clients afterwards, where they asked a simple question, says, what happens when I train people just for the course? What's the KPI impact? And it was pretty much exactly the same as what these graphs say. When they just train people in a new product, sales initially increased by 30%, then degraded down on that product line to 8% as the knowledge faded and the behavior faded and everything else faded towards that. If I then take the Vodafone example, and what Vodafone did and Hilti did and all the other clients that were in that case study did, is basically say, well, what happens when I stop trying to stuff all the knowledge in their head and instead I make all of the information they may need at some point available at point of need through search? So how do I provide the platform and the content? What happens to performance when that changes? And the results came out that said, and they basically ran for 1 year, they onboarded people, the brain stuffing technique, and which is a 3-week onboarding course. And then they, on the pink bit, they ran a 1-week onboarding course, but then everything else that was more knowledge-based, they made sure it's available only at point of need, and they really baked the habits of search into the actual, into the behaviors by making sure every time a line manager was asked a question by a new member of staff, their answer is go search for Fuse. And the result of that was they measured that and said, well, what's the average NPS score for people that just get trained? And what's it for people that get trained less, but have the tools available at point of need? And the difference was on 1 year of data, a 12-point average NPS score versus an 84 NPS score. Now, NPS score is a happiness score. That's a pretty massive difference that shows the benefit of training less, but actually having knowledge available at point of need and creating the habits to find that at point of need. And obviously this is not that different to, I guess, the ideas that we had. So one of the initial ideas we had, and this is where I guess the marriage of Pureinsight and Fuse came together, because what we had cracked was the tacit knowledge piece. What we had cracked was the know-how of how do you take the knowledge out of experts' head and make that available to everyone else. So much so that actually we have a charity called Fuse School, where we have extracted the best knowledge out of the best teachers' heads into 1,000 bite-sized videos, which we have about 10 million children around the world who use it every year. And as you can see from the comments on the right-hand side, like Celeste at the bottom, I've no idea, has it changed my life? The most common thing is I now understand in 5 minutes what my teachers have been trying to explain to me for a couple of years. And the process of that was a process we pioneered, which was finding an expert, interviewing them with a technique that asked the right questions to extract out the most concise, passionate explanation. We then take that digital, we take that audio recording, we then take out all the ums and ahs, post-produce it, create a beginning, middle, end, and then put a really nice visual across the top of it to make it easier and more brain-friendly to understand. And that's what's allowed us to digitize the entire secondary school 4 subjects at a cost level that's 1% of what governments around the world are doing. So we worked that bit out, but what we hadn't worked out was we didn't have a YouTube style engine or a Google style engine. So we needed that expertise to really make sure the content that was being created on our platforms was as easy to find as YouTube or Google for our corporate clients. This is just a quick couple of seconds showing what some of that content looks like. If I show you then how that transforms into our corporate clients, this is some really important content. So this is Fuller's, who used to not educate 90% of the people on basic onboarding thing with critical life-changing tasks like how to pour the right type of beer, because that's important for
Step 1, you want a nice cold, clean glass.
So this guy is the best beer puller at Fuller's.
And the correct glass as well, branded for the drink.
And the tip here is all about the swirl.
You're aiming for about 5.
So for everyone in Britain, at least, everyone is now from the Fuller's Pub going to get the proper type of beer with the right type of head, thanks to a 5-10 minute video capture from the expert, and every single employee watches that content and is able to go back to the content in case they ever pour a bad pint of beer. But at the same point, that type of knowledge is also, the process is as relevant for something as simple as pulling a pint to GSK's most complex new process and its drug. So the capturing of knowledge in this digital format and a visual layer on top. Just a couple of seconds of that.
Crystallizations are process steps that occur for the majority of the manufacture of APIs, and they can be the primary method of control for intermediates or products to achieve the right purity.
So I don't go through the whole thing, but it's the same concept for the kids, the same for Fuller's, capturing the best expert, whether that's the best teacher, the best frontline staff, or the best process person on the latest drugs for GSK, and getting them to eloquently, passionately, concisely explain their part, and then using visuals so everybody, or the majority of people, get it first time by using brain-friendly learning techniques, and all at a hugely reduced cost or traditional ways of doing it. So that's, and I think if you look again in our personal lives, that obviously is what we do, Google and YouTube. I heard the interview from Sky Brown, who's 13, 14-year-old girl who won an Olympic medal at the last Olympics. And when she was asked where she learned those techniques, what she said was, I learned it from the best experts in the world on YouTube. I understood what was going on and then tried it, practiced it, went back to the video, maybe asked a question of the expert, tried, practiced it. And then, with all that commitment, she's ended up winning an amazing medal because she had access to experts' knowledge that was digitized on a platform she could search and find. Take my kids. My kids, the same thing, who are 8, 9, 10 years old. And they were obviously starting to hear some rumors that Daddy may not be involved in the whole birth of how they came about. Mummy had been telling a story that it was all her and I didn't help at all. So eventually they got curious enough and they typed into Google how a baby's made. So rather than wait for the school, year 7, 8, whenever they tell it at school, or us having that conversation, they just do what the rest of us do. Once they get curious, they type it in a safe, set, friendly work with all the filters on, and it does turn out that actually Daddy did help in some way as well. So we're there together. Yeah, is there a question there?
We have a comment. Someone would like you to speak a little slower.
Yeah, I get that a lot. Sorry. I get excited. I'm sorry. I will go slower. I'll do my best. Apologies. I get excited. The more excited I get, the faster I get. So deep breathing. Okay. So if we go back to, I guess, our learning world now, we want to achieve the same thing. One of the reasons why learning failed, or digital learning really does fail or has failed in its first generations, is it doesn't achieve the 10-second 2-click rule. That's a rule that a very smart, intelligent thought leader called Bob Mosher put forward. But basically shows us for these traditional e-learning, I'm sure you've gone through it, that not only are they dry, but the ability to get back into the knowledge inside it is really hard because the knowledge is wrapped up within the course. So normally you've got to search for the course, and then you've got to search in the course to go get it. So you're not creating a habit that makes you want to go back, right? Because it's not the same habit as our Google experience. What we wanted to do was to make sure with Pureinsight that we broke that and able to allow all our clients to access that content and knowledge in whatever way they wanted to. And this is just emphasizing when that does happen. It is really interesting for us with a client like Avon, which has 1.5 million learners, external beauty entrepreneurs using our platform in 50-odd languages. And for their part, they started the journey with us by saying, we want to train and certify every beauty entrepreneur. So 1.5 million people trained, and they looked at what happens in difference in performance to the people that were trained to not trained. And it's a 6% increase in sales. Now, most CEOs would say, well, if I can get a 6% increase, that's really interesting. But then they asked the question of the data and said, what happens when people create the habit of continuous learning, like the Olympic champion? So what happens when they search and go back? What happens when content is discovered in a bite-sized fashion, like Flipboard or YouTube? What happens when they frequently go back and become a continuous learner? A continuous learner is someone that frequently goes back for a variety of different reasons. And the people that had a certain habit of learning, the same as the Vodafone, same as Hiltis and Panasonics, those people in the external customer training world were achieving 300% difference in performance over the people that simply went through the course. So again, the data keeps telling us it's the same type side. So there's three things there that we wanted to do that we have now done, and we actually launched the actual main launch yesterday, so big celebrations, and three aspects of the technology that added into the platform. One was what we call the Googleization of knowledge. So in essence, how do we index and understand all of the content that's on the platform and connected to the platform? Second is, so that if you like, it's the mountain under the iceberg that Google does. I mean, I think of it as everyone thinks of Google, there's the search box as the tip of the iceberg, but it's the 900,000 Google servers that's doing all the hard work and all the intelligence of indexing, crawling, and learning, and being a continuous learning entity. The second part, obviously, is the front end bit to understand your search, the natural language piece. And the third bit we'll come to is going a step further than Google, because we actually understand more than Google do about the individual. So we can use that, plus the understanding of all the content, to predict the thing they need based upon the thing they're doing. So in the first bit, just showing what the first piece of technology does.
We believe learners should have the easiest and fastest access to learning by unlocking your experts' knowledge, unleashing the amazing historical and future content created by your learning professionals, and bringing in the best of library content from the top vendors in the world through beautifully crafted recommendations and experience and search as trusted as Google. To do this, your future learning ecosystem will be powered by the creation of your AI corporate brain. When content is created or connected to Fuse, our AI will crawl and analyze all of it, using the latest AI machine learning tools from Amazon and Microsoft, breaking apart all of the learning content you have ever created across all your platforms, and semantically understand the meaning of the text within your files, PDFs and articles, as well as automatically transcribing audio into text transcripts from all the video footage. Once it's finished its deep understanding, it adds all of this information to your new knowledge intelligence engine, adding metadata, including skills, tags for keywords, categories, subjects, industries, people, and it adds all this and the original body text into the AI knowledge intelligence engine. Now that Fuse has the deepest understanding of all of your content you've created or licensed, the Fuse Learner Experience layer can be used to provide the easiest and most relevant content through search and recommendations.
So that first bit is in essence doing this, right? It's the indexing, the scanning, both of the explicit knowledge that we now have access to, but also obviously the tacit knowledge that's being added to the platform through conversations, questions and answers, videos, and so forth. All of that. So in essence, the learning platform becomes a learner. So the learning platform is constantly learning as it constantly encodes and indexes the organization's brain as new knowledge is uploaded to the platform. The second piece then is the introduction of the front end to allow us to find the piece. Now we've got the brain, how do we allow us to find the stuff inside? And there's two phases to this. Phase one was released yesterday, and phase two next quarter.
For search, we've embedded Google's natural language AI, the same search capability that your people use every day on google.com, meaning no retraining is needed to release the full latent capability of your people and technology. The result of which is all the amazing courses and content created historically by your organization becomes more findable to those that can really benefit from it. Because your learners will not only be able to find any course faster, but also the knowledge in files, videos, or FAQs, and you will even be able to ask a question of the platform, as the knowledge intelligence engine turns your content into a knowledge bank and enables questions asked to have the best text answer extracted or the position in a video suggested the same way Google does. This capability is not only available for all the content you have created, but all the content you will connect to the learning ecosystem, including content from a variety of third-party systems as well as content stored in Fuse.
in essence, yeah, this part here, just to show this kind of quickly, right? So I guess if I'm someone like, you know, Tesla, for example, am I sharing the health screen or part of my screen? Let me just see. Make sure I just share. So yeah, if I'm Tesla and if I had a Powerwall, would be great if I did. And there's an unusual smell. The answer, obviously, it's a piece of technology. So the answer is turn it on, turn it off. But just in case it wasn't turn it on, turn it off, the answer exists inside a 75-page manual. And obviously, normally in the learning world, we might actually train the 75-page manual and making sure everyone understands everything inside of that. Versus in this new world, we're indexing that content, so we're able to bring that through in that way. Likewise, if that's explicit knowledge, and if that was maybe more tacit knowledge, so I'm just curious what happens to excess energy on a Tesla Powerwall. Well, actually, it's stored in the day, will be used to power the home after the sun goes down. And that's from a transcript from a video which someone would have walked through and actually created, which again, the answer is inside here.
Excess solar energy stored in.
But I don't need to go to the video because obviously now via search, I'm getting the answer I need from an expert. I know Sam is the greatest person on Powerwalls on the world, so I don't need to go into that content. Just to go through, so that's phase one, what's now gone live into our client base. And then phase two is then allowing our clients to go further by adding some of the Google AI and some of the human AI. So a learning course traditionally would be, here's my course, made up of 50 content items, videos, files, documents, which there may be 10,000 paragraphs in those content items. The Google AI basically allows us to do everything smart that Phil said and make sure every paragraph can be searched for. So if I type in, how long will my onboarding last? And there's a document that has the answer in with a great paragraph, then I don't need to go to the document or paragraph, and I don't need to create the content in a special way. The answer comes straight back. So that massively means I can reduce both the time to onboard people, reduce the formal training, and actually give people the right knowledge and the best knowledge rather than what they would do, which is ask somebody nearby or maybe on a Teams or a Slack channel. And then the same thing available from the crowd. So as the question is asked through our community social platform, and an answer is given, such as how many languages does Fuse support? If an expert answers 49, and that's marked as an answer, the next time somebody asks that, you don't need to go and bug the expert. The corporate brain now knows the answer is 49. So again, we're using the power of both AI, but also the crowd to grow that corporate brain. And then the last piece of this particular phase of technology is the ability to predict the piece of knowledge you need based on the task you're doing through a browser extension.
Access will also be available from anywhere, whether on the desktop, web apps, or native mobile app. And Fuse Flow brings knowledge intelligence and deep search.
So just showing, so Fuse Flow is basically the ability to press a button. It then scans the page, so recognizing I'm on entrepreneur website, on sales skills, and it uses what it learns on that page to match and map against the content index and the index we now have to say, based on who you are, what you're allowed to see, what your preferred language is, what community ships you're members of, and other HR data, I can now take that and match that against the brain to say, here's the bit of learning or the bit of knowledge I think you need to carry out that task. Or just like Google, it's one click to get into the search bar to actually type in the search you need. I don't need to go to the platform to basically get access to the corporate brain.
Out of Fuse and directly into all your colleagues' browsers, deeply across all your applications. And with our new Scan to Learn capabilities, Fuse Flow automatically adds its understanding of you, alongside what it scans in your app, to intelligently match the most appropriate tacit or explicit access.
And the good news, guys, there's also a player, the video player in Fuse has a half speed player and it's 7.75. So that's often used, obviously, in to get through some of my personal challenges. So in essence, it does this, right? It's press the button, the search bar becomes available, or it automatically matches your task, your activity, everything we know about you against the index, the super smart brain that's constantly learning to say, I think this is the thing that helps you through. And therefore, where our clients get to, in just a minute, and I'll finish up for questions, where our clients get to now is they're still going to say, I'm still going to train people, but less. I'm going to spend 10% of what I used to spend training people and telling people what to do. All the learning and the knowledge piece, I'm going to make available only at point of need. So I'm designed for the output first, and the output is high performance rather than attainment of a skill. So our clients are now moving up to 90% of their traditional, what they would put in a course, in the workflow piece. And then the training piece, they're changing to be more like this. They're saying my 5-day course goes to a 2-day course. 90% plus of my slides go to learning in the flow, to knowledge, which is available through the technology we talked through. And my workshop is really about the behavioral change performance aspect. How do I help you present the idea? How do I help you believe the idea? So much less around presentation of content, much more about practice and discussion. And it is quite what the technology of knowledge management integrated into a learning platform does. It allows the goal that every forward-thinking learning professional wants, which is to design from the right-hand side, not the left-hand side. Left-hand side is, I think there's a business problem, and the answer is 2 courses for 1,000 people. And we know this is what results in the lower NPS score in the previous example. The right-hand side says, I design for performance work first. Well, I understand what my KPI I'm trying to shift. I understand what knowledge I'm going to make available at point of need first, and what's left is what I train. So it seems a simple concept, designing from the right than the left, but the impact and the design are obviously quite radically different. And the big thing is the introductions of the tools that now make this easier. And what we say to our clients is a kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. So crawl is actually just have the Google experience and allow people to go faster. The walk part is moving and connecting more of the content to our platform. And the run is a previous issue at the previous slide, which is getting people to design from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. But if you think about, I guess, your black cab driver versus your Uber driver. So this is the black cab driver approach, that we teach a black cab driver and they learn every single street in London, and it takes 4 years to get up to here. You take the right-hand side and you digitize all the knowledge of every street in the world, not just London. Then the driver, the Uber drivers, are now up to speed within the time it takes to get the driving license, and Uber and the individual are making money from driving from that period of time when they get the license to drive, not the license to store all the knowledge of 4 years piece of work. I mean, it's an extreme example, but it's why Uber is one of the biggest companies in the world, and the company that owns the black cab drivers isn't, although that got bought by Geely's, so they're not doing too bad. They own Volvo cars as well. Side story, but they got bought in essence. So let me pause and maybe let me get to some of the questions, and Phil, happy to jump in for you too to help on the question and answers bits.
We do have some questions for you. Let's see. Miranda wants to know, are there ways to socialize, share, or comment on a specific artifact?
Yeah, absolutely. That's when we built Fuse, we built it initially as YouTube and LinkedIn. So, for example, if I was really quick example, if I was, the quicker, I'll show you in the background to make sure we get a second question in. But yeah, that's the core element to the platform, which is if I was in, let's take that bit of software, let's take a bit of software like this, just a random bit of software. If I press my Fuse Flow button, which then tries to understand what I'm doing, what I'm working on, and it says, oh, look, you're in cognitism, you're on this page, here's a video from the expert tomorrow. So I can then pop out. It uses obviously the intelligence engine, help me match. I can watch my video, I can give it a like, and also I can chat to tomorrow to say, actually help me out a bit more.
Hey, Steve, I don't think you were sharing that last little section there.
Sorry. Let me just show that really super quick. So I was just showing.
There you go.
Inside here. There you go. And I was just showing, if you click there, I'm in this software. The software then, it pops up the relevant bit of learning. So it recognizes that I'm in this software, cognitism. So here's the recommended bit of learning. Pop out to Fuse. It could just pop out, I want, or I could tab out. So I've got the expert explaining me what to do. And then obviously I can give her a like. I just gave her a like because it's the most excellent video. I can ask them a question inside here as well. So hopefully that helps on that bit.
Heather asked, and I'm not sure that everybody saw the answer to this, Phil.
Okay.
Heather asked, does the content need to be curated in a specific way to index to pull snippets?
Yeah, thanks, Mary D. So I wrote a little synopsis in the background. Apologies for not sending it out to everybody, but no, you don't really need to curate the data much. Just the normal metadata and the normal content that you already have with each object, whether the object be a video, a PDF, or a document, is enough for us to use these algorithms on and then provide those extractive answers or even knowledge graph-based answers as well.
Okay. So Ankit would like to know, what is the integration roadmap for this with other technologies? And I think he is also interested in images, how it relates to images.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve. If you...
The 2 bits I'll pass to you. So, so we already have connectors. So in the first release, we're connecting to Fusion itself as a connector. LinkedIn, in our world of library connectors, we're going live in a few weeks with the big library vendors like LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, and so forth. We're then connecting in with SAP just a little bit after that. And then obviously the big one for us is SharePoint and so forth. After that, I think then it's on both our roadmaps, which, because it's a joint product in terms of the knowledge and the connectors bit, it's probably client driven. So we'll have a roadmap for both of us in terms of having our own connectors. But if a client comes in, knocks on the door, wants to go one, then we'll just create it with them, and Phil and his team will go create it.
Very cool.
And I'll just finish off on that for the specific answer in and around images. There's a lot of AI work going on out there to understand images much better than we have been in the past. So Microsoft and Google and Amazon, they're doing image-based recognition now. So whilst you might only have an image and not much metadata that describes the content of that image, we can now pass those images into these cognitive services APIs, and it generates a really rich set of metadata that we can then use to tag up the image. And then those images can then be part of the answers that we provide.
Yeah, maybe adding to that, we accidentally turned it on a couple of weeks ago. So that service is just a service you can turn on or off. Now that we have an integrated engine into the different vendors, so we actually turned on the video analyzer engine rather than the semantic text engine. So instead of getting tags on the transcript, we were getting tags on the, so in, Phil's videos would be saying picture, books, man, handsome, towards those things. We were getting these, how did it know that Phil's a handsome man with the books behind? Oh wow, we turned we've turned the wrong service on. So yeah, literally we turned it off, and now the question for us is, when does that bit add value, and when do we turn it on? And there's no point doing it for everything, but literally it is easy as now as an API and a switch, now that it is integrated into those services. Likewise on translation, again, we accidentally invented and realized that my wife is Italian. If she uploads, so we support different language, and we have both transcription and Google's translation, and so different companies doing different bits. And we try and pick and choose, pick and mix, and Phil and the team advises us to pick and mix the best ones. But if I take my wife's voice video, upload it, it will transcribe to Italian in the background and translate the text to English in the foreground. So the bad news is I can now understand my mother-in-law, and it's not good.
Interesting use case there.
We had such a good relationship when we didn't understand each other.
I think we'll just leave that one alone. And we do have another question. Can this operate only inside a firewall with no access to the internet? How does the brain know what you are allowed to see and not to see?
I think 2 bits, 1 bit's Phil and then 1 bit's Fuse. So let me do the Fuse bit, and I'll pass to Phil for his part. So obviously the technology of Fuse sits in the cloud, and across clouds now in terms of that part, but the content can obviously sit elsewhere. So the content could sit on internal systems. As long as we can connect to it, crawl it, it doesn't have to sit inside the Amazon bucket or the Google bucket that we have. So that's one part to it. And then and Phil will talk about the second bit, we use communities to filter out what people can and can't see. So for example, if there was a folder or a learning library that only one audience was allowed to see, we use audience mapping and communities to automatically map communities to audiences to see which content they can and can't see. So if Phil, who's on our internal platform, did a search, he wouldn't see any of the content from our board of directors or leadership communities. And then Phil, maybe you want to talk to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure thing. And it's a really great question, because there's a lot of fear about, inadvertently leaking knowledge out when you put these systems in place. But in actuality, secured kind of global or enterprise search has been a problem solved for the last 20 years or so. It really has, and lots of organizations are using it today to provide information to their employees where it's highly secured. And simply, it just uses the security group information that you assign to each object as you develop the content. And when you log into your environment, you effectively authenticate to those systems and say, oh, I'm a member of technical, I'm a member of sales, I'm a member of marketing, or all three. And then the search system just naturally understands which pieces of content it can show you versus which pieces of content it can't. So that's a problem being solved for 20 years or more. And we're just working on kind of piggybacking off that technology in order for us to provide deep knowledge graph and extractive answers to real questions. So, same technology.
Excellent. We are out of time for this session. Thanks to both Steve and Phil. This was absolutely fascinating. I want to go learn how to pour the perfect pint. Other than that, we do have a networking area if you want to go over there, if Steve and Phil are available, or you can contact them directly. And if you have more questions, so thanks very, very much.